Hi there, welcome to the Upcycle Design Lab. I'm so happy to have you stop by today. My name's Cindy and I craft using recycled and repurposed materials to give you ideas on ways to make and create more economically and ecologically. Today I'm going to be finishing up my embossed aluminum can art journal cover. So step into the lab with me and let me show you my latest experiment. So this is my art journal that I'm going to be making a cover for, and in the first part of this project I made a couple of sheets to cover my journal with on the front and the back, and they're just made out of aluminum can pieces, and I added some embossing and some alcohol ink, and if you missed that video I will link to that in the description box so you can get caught up to where we are. So today I'm going to be actually putting the cover onto my journal, and I've already gone ahead and sealed the alcohol ink on this particular sheet. There are a lot of different ways to seal alcohol ink. I just ended up using the Mod Podge gloss because that's what I have. And if you have your artwork perfect and you don't want the alcohol ink to move at all, I don't recommend this particular technique because the brush does move around the alcohol ink just a little bit when you're adding the finish. But I didn't really mind because I don't have a particular design here. I just sort of have splashes of color. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this piece with some more of the Mod Podge. I guess I should also mention that alcohol ink is particularly susceptible to sunlight, and so your colors will fade if you don't put a finish on it that also helps to control the ultraviolet lights. But for my purposes, I'm not too worried about that, and I'm just trying to seal the ink so that it doesn't continue moving around. But there are several different products that you can put on your alcohol ink if you have it just perfect and you want to be sure that it's sealed against sunlight and fading, as well as just the ink moving around. I'm trying not to do too much brushing because, like I said, it does shift the ink a little bit. But I just want to get a thin coat on here. You could probably skip this step if you wanted to, but I decided to fill in the back of my embossing to give it a little support, and also because I wanted to have a smoother surface to glue to the book cover itself. So I'm just using some joint compound, because that's what we have, and a putty knife to carefully spread a really thin layer on the back of my pieces. This is a sheet that I made to put on the inside cover, so I need to make a second one for the back of the cover. And to do that, I'm using a piece of cardstock, just a regular 8.5 by 11, and some aluminum foil, and then I have some adhesive spray to attach the pieces together. So I wasn't feeling like I could probably get my aluminum foil super smooth. So I just tore a piece and then I gently crinkled it. I'm going to take the two pieces outside so that I can spray them with the adhesive, just because you want to have good ventilation. So I sprayed both surfaces for a permanent bond with this particular adhesive spray. And now I'm just going to lay my foil on top here. Make sure I got all the edges covered, and I'm just going to press the foil in place. And you could trim it. I'm just going to tear off the edges and kind of tuck them under the back side here. I bought this little, it's called a fixed staple safety hasp, I guess is what it's called, but just in the hardware section of Home Depot. And so I can put a little sort of latch on my book. And in order to do that, I cut a piece of suede that I had to make a strap for this piece of the hasp. So I'm going to go to my Fabri-Tac glue, I think, to glue this onto the strap. I decided I want to go ahead and glue the strap on and then cover it with my metal pieces. So I want to leave a little bit of room to grow on the front here, but I don't want there to be a big gap with my strap. So I think I'm good right about here. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball the center. You can use E6000 glue. I have some Gorilla Clear glue right now, so that's what I'm going to use, but they're pretty much interchangeable. I have a lot of pages that aren't finished in here, so I suspect that it's going to get fatter as time goes on. So I think that's going to be good right there. So I've gone ahead and glued my back piece on, but now I'm going to use some more of my Gorilla Glue just to glue the front panel on as well. I'm not too worried about the edges because I'm going to be taping the edges, but I do want to make sure I have glue kind of all over the field of the piece so that it will stay pretty flat to the book cover. So I've got my aluminum covers glued onto my art journal, and the next thing I want to do is try to finish off these edges. So I'm going to use some more of my HVAC tape that I used to hook the aluminum pieces together, and I've cut a couple of strips about the length or width of my book, but it's a little too wide. I don't need the whole 2 inches, so I'm going to trim off about a ½ an inch. And as I mentioned in my previous video, this tape has some paper backing on it, so I'm going to save this. I might be able to use it for something else later. And what I want to do is just take this to the edge where that first bend in my book binding starts. And then there's a slight fold you might not be able to see all the way around my metal or aluminum piece. So I'm going to line up my tape with that and this first edge, and then I will wrap it around the back of the book. So for this piece, I want to kind of make some mitered corners. So I've removed a little bit of the backing here, and I'm going to set it up to my line, making sure I have a little excess on both ends. And then I think I'll be able to just trim my mitered corners and fold everything back so that I have a nice clean mitered corner. So I'm ready to put the back piece of tape on, and this is going to be a little bit trickier because I have to cut a slit in the tape so that I can slide my strap through. And it's going to have to be a little bit wider than the strap because I have this sort of big clunky part of the hardware that needs to fit through there. So I'm hoping that if I make the slit just a little bit wider, I can close it back up and that it won't really show once I have the strap through there and the tape pressed down. But we'll see. This is all just an experiment, right? So for my binding on the back of the book, I cut another piece of my blue suede that I made the strap out of. And I have a little excess on both ends that I want to leave so I can trim back and kind of roll it around the top edge of the book here. And to glue my piece in place, I'm going to use some Fabri-Tac glue just because it grabs a little quicker, and then the Gorilla Glue because I trust it a little bit more with the metal and fabric combination. So I'm going to leave my ends loose for a minute so that I can go back and trim them. So I'm just going to basically glue the center part of the book binding here. So what I want to do with my ends is I want to trim this edge back and then leave just a tiny bit back here where this blue of the old binding still shows, and then I can just kind of glue that in there carefully. So I've got this end trimmed down, so I can go ahead and glue all of the edges down. So I'm ready to put the other part of the clasp on to my book, and I'm actually going to use the screws that came with it to hook this piece on. So I want to go ahead and line it up where I want it. And then I'm going to use a center punch to mark where I want the holes. And I'm just going to go ahead and drill those 2 holes that I marked. I've got the holes drilled in the cover of my book here, but before I attach this clasp, I want to go ahead and finish the inside of my book covers. So I'm going to take my foil sheets, and I'm going to use a combination of the Fabri-Tac glue and some double-sided tape to attach the pieces inside the cover. All right, so I'm ready to put the rest of my clasp on, and I'm using the shortest screws I could find, but I probably am still going to stick through the end here. So I left myself a little problem to have to deal with, but I think with some creativity I'll be able to cover up the screws. I did want to add a little bit of glue here too, I think. Just because the screws don't have a lot to grab onto. I mean, it shouldn't get a lot of pulling on it, but you do want it to be secure, so better safe than sorry. All right, gonna need a little glue and creativity to cover those up. So what do you think? Would you have added more alcohol ink to the other silver parts of the journal? Let me know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified when I upload new videos. And if you want, check out my entire art journal playlist below, or check out some other aluminum can craft projects in the playlist below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you back here soon in the lab.